Of course, the NBA Finals are going down, but in the midst of the NBA Finals, so much has come out in the world of the NBA. Somebody was trending on Twitter on Wednesday afternoon/evening. Maybe we'll talk about that. We got news about James Harden, news about Dame Lillard, news about another big player in this free agency, apparently, Chris Paul. We'll discuss that later, but we'll get to the main course first. Welcome into Inside the Green Room with Danny Green. I'm Harrison Sanford. Let's talk about Game 3 of the NBA Finals, where Nikola Jokic did his usual thing, a triple-double. Jamal Murray did his thing as well, which included a triple-double as the Denver Nuggets take back home court. I don't want to say steal. They took back home court advantage. Sure. In these NBA Finals. There's a bunch to discuss, Danny, but let's get into the nitty-gritty main question for you, my friend. The biggest reason why the Denver Nuggets took back control of the series.
Christian Braun. I don't know why they say Brown, but I mean, spelled like Braun, but Christian Braun off the bench played a huge role for them. Just the energy, the cutting, and their size, the rebounding. They finally took advantage of their size the way they should, of getting on the glass. You know, even though Michael Porter Jr. wasn't scoring the way he should have, he was on the offensive glass, he was cutting, he was rebounding, he was giving them extra possessions. Aaron Gordon on the glass, Jokic, and they also found a way. They found a couple, I won't say a way, but a couple plays. They had a couple sets for that zone that Miami's been giving so many other teams trouble with. And as soon as you see it happen, opened up like the Red Sea. See Jokic catch the ball on the right, dunker area, a couple guys cutting. They had no answer for it, and there's too many smalls behind it, and they tried to trap Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray found guys outside of the trap for layups and ones like Christian Braun. But their bench production, because their starters, obviously, Jokic and Murray have been unbelievable, and they continue to be unbelievable, but they're not getting what they need from the other guys, and that's mainly KCP, MPJ, offensively scoring-wise. But today, I think they did a better job tonight. They did a better job defensively, and their assignments and not having as many miscommunications. But with those guys not getting as many looks or shooting as well, Christian Braun stepped up, had an amazing game off the bench for them. They only scored 109 points. So, yeah, Miami, even though that they didn't shoot well or have their others step up like they normally did, they still had a chance to win that game. But, the whole tempo and energy changed when Brown was in the game.
109-94 is your final, and you're right. Like, it's the Nuggets could still score a lot better. 109 would I don't have their stats in front of me in terms of the regular season, but I would assume that's under their regular season number. But what they did, they still shot very efficient from the floor. They finished, let's see here, 51% from the field. Meanwhile, the Miami Heat were 37% from the field. And you talked about those rebounded numbers, 58 rebounds for the Denver Nuggets, 33 for the Miami Heat. Absolutely dominated them on the rebounds. And if you guys have been paying attention to me outside of the Inside the Green Room podcast, you know that I've been hammering Aaron Gordon's rebounds on the betting markets, and he finished with 10. But that's another story for another day that we can discuss on another platform. Let's talk about what the Miami Heat have to do. You mentioned that zone got picked apart by the Denver Nuggets. And it was interesting because in game number 2, they really had a hard time trying to solve the zone. But during the regular season, the Denver Nuggets were the number 2 team against the zone. Do you know the number 1 team against the zone in the regular season by any chance?
It was Denver, no? They just didn't look like it in the first 2 games.
No, they were number 2. You know who was number 1?
That's a good damn question. I want to say maybe
it's going to
Miami.
surprise you. It's going to surprise you. The Cleveland Cavaliers were the number 1 team scoring against the zone during the regular season. Yeah, very surprising. Yes, but it was the Denver Nuggets who were the number 2 team. And again, tonight they showed why they can operate against the zone. So now Eric Spoelstra has to come up with something else to confuse the 2-time MVP and Nikola Jokic and his Denver Nuggets. Danny, it's time to play head coach. The 3 keys and 3 keys only to Miami winning game number 4.
I honestly think they did a great job tonight. I think they continue to do what they do. If they can hold them to 109 points, I think they have a shot, especially with the way they've been scoring. So the biggest key for me is for them offensively is to maybe get more pace for them, but getting their shooters more available, keep Gabe Vincent out of foul trouble, which would hurt. That would hurt them because you need more from Gabe Vincent and Strus. But when you get those guys playing the way they normally play, you score enough. So you continue to play the way you're playing, do better on the glass, But yeah, I don't think there's much that they do need to change. Obviously, switch up the zone. So they figured out the zone. They know how to score against it. So you throw it in randomly, sporadically when certain guys are not on the floor. The trapping situation, you only throw the trap out there when certain guys are on the floor. Like when Jamal Murray, you can't trap him when there's certain guys that are on the floor. But Mike Malone's figured it out. He's putting good lineups in, and the guys that are the others are knowing how to make themselves effective, when they're trapping Murray or Jokic making them play one-on-one. They're finding ways to get more pace. So yeah, but I think with that all being said, Miami did a great job defensively. I think they just needed to score more, and that's obviously keeping Denver off the glass, not giving second opportunities, and just getting the shooters more looks, getting them more open, getting more pace for those shooters. Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, Duncan Robinson played well. He didn't play a little more minutes, but they played a great game. Bam has been unbelievable, honestly. They need Bam to continue to play at that level, but they need more scoring from the others, which they normally do get in the playoffs. Well, throughout the playoffs, they have before this game. So if they just continue to score better, rebound a little bit better, and continue to keep MPJ and KCP out the game, because they're going to have a hot night eventually. They're going to get one of those nights we're going to play well. But if you limit the others outside of Jokic and Murray, you give yourself a really good chance.
Yeah, Gabe Vincent, 2 of 10 from the field today. Max Strus, 1 of 7 from the field today. So going to need some scoring from them. And maybe some scoring will come in the form of Tyler Hero as well. The scary thing, though, if they do play at a higher pace, that could invite some other Denver Nuggets scorers to enter themselves into the series. Bam Adebayo, even though he finished with 22 points and 17 assists, 7 of 21 from the field, you're going to need him to be closer to 50% from the field if they want to be successful.
But they can do the pace without allowing Denver to have pace. You understand what I'm saying? So offensively, they can do pace in half-court set or pace on offense, but slow them down defensively. I think they bring the press back a little bit more, too. That zone press, just throw it out there once in a while, just to slow them down. But you could still slow down the game for them, but make the game faster for you in the half-court set, with your cuts moving. They did a great job in game 3 of moving without the ball. You see Duncan Robinson curling, Caleb Martin curling, and they got extra possessions because of that. Even though they're smaller, because they're moving so much and there's so much switching going on, it gets Denver out of position to rebound, and it gives Miami a chance to get some offensive rebounds as the smaller team, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, actually, there were some quotes about Miami playing harder that I want to get to you. I want to talk to you about, but we'll save that for the next segment. I want to focus in on the guys that had triple doubles tonight. Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray. Those guys, man, boy, are they a handful. And I found myself saying this dating back to the Phoenix Sun series. And I know it sounds blasphemous, but I'm going to say it anyway, because the way these guys are hooping, it seems pretty on point to me. Bro, this is like some new age Shaq and Kobe. Like, yes, they got to win the titles. I get it. I understand. But let's Nikola Jokic is a 2-time MVP, and every single time he shoots the ball when he's in the paint, it feels like it kisses the rim and rolls right in.
Rolls right in. He's got that soft touch. It's going in, and it makes it look so easy too. Right foot, left foot, no matter what foot, it'd be ugly as hell. And he's going to shoot it right over Kevin Love, and it's going to touch the front rim, touch the back rim. It's going to find its way through the net. It's unbelievable. But they said playing at a high level, bro. And Jamal Murray, we've seen this in the bubble, and we thought we could never see. We wouldn't think he would do that level, like get back to that level again.
Better than the bubble now.
Man, listen. I mean, obviously him and Donovan Mitchell scoring 50, 60, and it was unbelievable. It was hard to believe, and he was making tough shots. Even when I was going, he would take turnaround fadeaways, post up damn near by the 3-point line, and making shots. And I'm like, this guy is on another level. He's just very comfortable now. He'll never have another game like that. He is playing consistently like that time and time again, not just from that series, but this series on, from playing the Lakers, playing Minnesota, whoever they're playing, he's coming up big. So even when those other guys that usually step up and average double digits, like KCP, MPJ, he's carrying that secondary load. So you're expecting Jokic to get his 30 or so. And Jamal usually gets maybe 25, 20. But he's getting 30 and a triple-double, 10 assists, 10 rebounds. He's doing all the little stuff. And Aaron Gordon, obviously the bigger guard, defensively, double guard, Jimmy Butler, and getting rebounds. He's a big difference maker as well. And Christian Brown, I want to say Braun, him off the bench is a bigger guard too, getting to the rim, finishing, dunking, but also he played a great defense guarding Jimmy as well. He stayed down, didn't fall for his pump fake, didn't get in foul trouble. And offensively, he was aggressive. He got to the rim, got some N1s. Try to put Jimmy in the rim. He was out there.
Oh, yeah.
He was a different guy out there tonight. He was aggressive. They're going to continue to need that from him. Obviously, Bruce Brown as well. And then said to others, if they want to continue to stay consistent and win game 4 on the road. But I expect Miami to come out very differently, especially Gabe Vincent's not going to get in foul trouble again. He's going to shoot better. So is Max Strus. I think game four is going to be one of the closer games we have in the series. It's going to be similar to game 2.
I want to get your predictions on game number 4, but pointing out Jimmy Butler, 5 of 6 from the free throw line. Throughout these playoffs, he had been averaging 9 free throws per game, but he had 0 free throws in game number 1, 5 free throws in game number 2, and only 6 tonight. It's a big factor to how he scores and allows the Miami Heat to set up their defense, but he's not getting to the line as much as he probably would like to in this series. But let's go back to Jokic and Murray real quick. Because I said I like they're like some new age Shaq and Kobe. Yes, they don't have the bling to verify that, but Jokic is dominant. Yeah, Jokic
it's not as sexy. It doesn't look as nice, not as athletic, but the numbers, they're putting up the numbers, man. They're putting up some extreme numbers. But continue.
Yeah, Jokic is incredible. Murray's playing with a wealth of confidence, and obviously he has a whole scoring bag to him, and he's doing it in the triple-double fashion. He's had 10 assists at least in every single game so far this series. You've played in the league for a long time. Have you ever played a big man guard combination like this?
And it's funny you asked me that because I was thinking about it and I couldn't find or think of many. I've played with some. Said, Kalo was on the press the other day. He was at this press conference and he said he had to think about it. And he's like, Timmy and Tony. And I don't want to be biased because that's, to me, that's the I'm gonna say the ceiling, but that's the best of the best to me. And I played with them, so I've been lucky to play with them. And I don't want to share somebody that's teammates of mine and always give credit to my teammates. But Timmy and Tony, to me, is the pedestal. You know what I'm saying? But when I was thinking about it, there wasn't many bigs that was as dominant or could score like Jokic, and combo of a point guard that could shoot and score like that. The closest thing that I come to, and I don't want to disrespect these guys because these guys were fucking great too. Marc Gasol and Mike Conley. And we had some playoff series against Memphis when I was in San Antonio where they both were kind of lighting us up. And also Zebo had his fair share of lighting us up. And we got a couple guys paid, a couple of those summers. But Mark, he had great touch. He's a passing big. I think he's better than Nikola defensively, like for sure. But offensively, the footwork, the skill work, the touch. Mark had really good touch too and could shoot it. But I don't think he could shoot it as well as Nikola can from 3. Later in his career, he did. But also around the rim, said that mid-range, that floater, right leg, left leg, his footwork, be able to draw fouls. And they said the numbers that Jokic is pulling up, Mark wasn't near that. And Mark was an amazing player.
Especially when it comes to the rebounds, too. I mean, Nikola just had a 20 rebound game.
For sure. I mean, and don't get me wrong, Marc Gasol, Defensive Player of the Year, was, time and time again on defensive list, all defensive team, and I think all NBA at some point. So he's an amazing player. But to say he's not close to Jokic is kind of crazy. Like that just shows you how talented Jokic is. And Jamal Murray. And the reason why Jamal Murray is a little bit over, I'll give him the edge on Mike Conley. Mike Conley's quicker, great with floaters, shoot the 3. But Jamal Murray said he could post you up. And he could rebound. These are things that Mike Conley could do, but in a different way. And he wasn't doing as effective. These guys is nobody I've played against that can compare him to, except for them. And when I do play against them, it's a damn nightmare when you play against these guys. So, next couple of years, they're gonna have the league and they're gonna hold the league by storm if they stay together, stay healthy, stay consistent. Jokic always finds a way to make guys around him better. So that's what makes it easier for them to be able to operate the way they do. Man, it's gonna be. If they can stay consistent, it's gonna be interesting. But I think Miami's gonna fight. They always come with that grit and grind, and they're going to find a way to sneak another game, I think.
Nikola Jokic, 28 years of age. Jamal Murray, 26 years of age. They can have the league in the chokehold if they would so like. But maybe not so much because there are things happening in the free agency realm already that could change, put the league on top of its head with some of the headlines we're already getting, and free agency hasn't officially started yet at all. So when we come back from break, let's talk about some of the news that we're hearing in the Twitter world. But before we do that, 5 seconds or less, Danny, who wins game number 4?
Denver, but it's within 5. It's within 6 points.
I'm just going to say the Heat because your boy still needs. I need a 7-game series, and if the Heat lose game 4, it's over in 5.
I would love a 7-game series, but I think it only goes 6 at best, and I think that Denver gets this next one, but it's a close game.
Yeah. Well, if they have to go back to Denver on 1 day's rest actually 2 days because they play Monday. So they'll have a little bit more rest for Denver, but nonetheless, it'd be over in Denver. I can't see Miami. It's over. So, yeah, we'll see. All right, let's talk about some free agency stuff right after the break. Got to talk about the news about James Harden. Got to talk about the news pertaining to Chris Paul. Got to talk about the news that came out as it pertains to Damian Lillard. But before we do that, I have something that really annoys me, and I'm sure there's a lot of basketball fans out there and maybe some media members too who get annoyed by this too. And I have Danny here, so I have to ask him. I can't believe this is the first time I'm asking you.
Mm-hmm.
After game number 2, Michael Malone said we didn't play hard enough. XYZ, XYZ. I believe it was Jimmy Butler who said after game 3 tonight, after they lost, we didn't play hard enough.
Mm-hmm.
Danny, what's the deal with coaches and players talking about we didn't play hard enough, particularly in the playoffs? Like, is that code? That has to be code for something else, because I'm not trying to hear. No, I tell you this, no fan is trying to hear you didn't play hard enough. Like that's
For
just
sure.
annoying, and it doesn't actually feel real. But maybe
sure,
it is.
100%.
Can you explain
No,
why we have to hear those things?
it's not real because everybody comes out with the mindset of want to be intense. Now, somebody might outwork you, but play harder than you, which shouldn't happen. But it happens. Some guys have a little more edge, a little more energy, whatever mental focus or, whatever, meditation, whatever have motivation that they have in their mind. They might have a water boy effect where they look at your face and they see somebody talking crazy or criticism that they store from tweets or whatever, burners accounts. You never know what's going on. But in my way, the way I look at it, there's many ways to look at how when they say that, it's really you're just calling out certain guys. Now, it's not everybody didn't play hard. There's a couple guys, and I don't think they didn't play hard. I just think they didn't play smart. When I hear didn't play hard, you didn't play. You played dumb, and you let them play harder than you. In certain instances, where it shouldn't happen, where it's a missed rebound or a miscommunication, or whatever it may be, just certain 50-50 plays that shouldn't happen. That doesn't mean that you're not playing hard. You're just not playing smart, or you just had lapses that you shouldn't have had, and this guy outworked you on more possessions than you did them. But I said also, it's not everybody. I think there's a couple guys that point out to, and I don't think they want to single anybody out. So it's like, we got to play hard, and it's really like 2 or 3 guys really was out there out in fucking space. Maybe they just wasn't. They didn't come to work, or they came to work and they just physically, but mentally they wasn't there, and they got outsmarted or they got outworked more plays than they should have, and it's not acceptable. So that's how I take it. That's how I look at it. I think everybody comes out to play hard. I think everybody comes out to win. And just some nights, it just certain plays can dictate the whole flow of the game, and it might change it. A 20-point game might be closer if 2 calls or 2 plays were adjusted in the midst of the second quarter, and it could have been a 5 or 6 point game. It just all depends on how the situation is rolling. I don't think it's ever like, oh, we just didn't come to play today. It was, no, they shot better. They kicked our ass. They played well. They played hard. They outsmarted us. They had more guys play harder than some of our guys. We had a couple guys that were out to space or out to lunch, or just played harder but didn't play smart, either fouled dumb plays, foul shooters, or foul 3-point shooters. But or we just didn't have rhythm, or some rhythm threw them off. They missed a couple shots and it took them out their game. They're just thinking too much. There's so many factors that come. There's so many variables, but I don't think it's the actual working hard part. So
yeah,
you can take
I'd
it
imagine so. Yeah, I'd imagine so. It's just, I'm sure there's a bunch of fans who just hate hearing that without it being broken down like you just broke it down. But to your point,
you pay too much money to play. Like, you gotta fucking play. They're gonna cut you out. That's how the fans are. Come on, man, you get paid. You gotta make those shots. You're a pro. My dad's one of those people. So I hear it. I know it all the time. Like, and Draymond, he broke it. It's very hard to put that ball in the hoop sometimes. Especially when somebody's guarding you at that pace. It's not easy. It's not an easy game. Some games you feel great. Some games you feel terrible. Some games you might play great, feeling great. Some games you might play terrible, feeling great. Some games you might play great, feeling terrible. You just never know until you go out there and toss it up and actually go out there and get a feel for it. And sometimes you have no control over a situation. You might get a lot of minutes. You might get spurty minutes. Your group that you're out there, you might be a negative, so you might look bad in doing that. You might get in foul trouble. A lot of those things can dictate or change the whole mood and flow of your game and the team's game.
Yeah, there's a lot of variables that we could definitely get into. But let's get into what is going to be driving a lot of web traffic over the next month and a half. NBA free agency. First and foremost, we get to CJ McCollum, who talked about his former teammate Damian Lillard, and he said, if I was a betting man, that he would assume that Damian Lillard has played his last game with the Portland Trailblazers. Damian Lillard was on a Showtime podcast, I believe it was, with Brian Custer, and he said that if he did leave, he immediately said Miami would be an option for him as well.
This is where
even though Miami, he said he wouldn't go if they won an NBA title. I just want your reaction, as it seems as if Dame is more welcoming to the opportunity or the option of leaving Portland. Real quick.
I don't think so. I said, and you've seen in his story, he said you just run with it. People just run with anything. It wasn't like he chose the cities. The guy read him the cities. I heard the interview. He goes, people say Brooklyn looks like a good place. New York is a good place. Miami. They mentioned a couple cities. He said, out of those four, like, which one you think is the best spot? That's how it was presented to him. So it was like, well, duh, shit. Miami's the nicest, sexiest city. It's warm, no state taxes. And Bam is my dog. And Miami's winning right now. They're in the finals. So, like, but I get him on not want to play for a team that's won a championship. I want to add value. I don't want to be a part of it, just bandwagon a team that just won one. I want to go play for the team that lost to somebody and that can help them get over the hump that they didn't get over last year. So I'm with them on that. But he said, Bam is my guy. Then he said Brooklyn, Mikal Bridges is my guy. So that's what he said. It wasn't like I prefer to leave and I want these destinations. It was multiple choice, and it was like, which one is the best out of the multiple choice? And he goes, well, Miami is number one, and then Brooklyn number two. So, and then people ran with that, and it's like, oh, Dame wants Miami, and then he put on a story. He put the Kanye, I guess not meme, but this recent. I don't know if it was a recent interview. I'm on a story and say, people just run with anything, and that's how it was. You say anything in an interview, and you're asked the question, it's always a test. And he's like, regardless of how you answer, you always fail, but they're gonna run with anything I say anyway. So what's the point of even acting like,
Yeah, no, so for sure. Well, I'm sure you know how that goes. This is how the media game is played. That quote got all the run that it needed. Yeah, and it got people like me talking about it here on the podcast. Let's go to rumor mill number 2. Not necessarily a rumor, because this is a confirmed report from multiple national NBA reporters. The Phoenix Suns have approached Chris Paul to let him know that they will entertain either trading him, waiving him, or waiving and stretching him. If they waive and stretch him, they say they can get, I believe, up to $25 million. They'll free up about $25 million. They free up about $15 million if they just waive him in general. But if they waive him and he clears waivers, then he has the opportunity to go back to the Suns. And obviously there's still the option to trade him. And Chris Paul, according to at least the Chris Haynes report, is planning on playing at least a couple more years in the NBA. Your thoughts about moving on from Chris Paul? He is getting $15 million regardless. That's his guaranteed portion of his $30.8 million deal. Obviously he could fit in a lot of different places, but maybe has to be a bit cautious about his workload throughout the course of the regular season. Your immediate reaction when you saw the news?
Well, when you said first start off trending in Twitter, I thought of Zion. That's why I laughed at first. But I'm glad we're not gotten into that.
We ain't going to talk about Zion here. That's not for us. I'll do another podcast with somebody else where I can really talk about it.
No, we'll leave Zion to everybody else. But CP, my first initial thoughts was, wow, damn, they waived him. And then they came back with the reports that they're not waiving him, this and other. I was like, I thought even if you didn't want to keep him, I thought like a sign and trade would have been smarter. I know that they were looking at Fred VanVleet, which would be a good option for them. But if you can't get those guys, it's hard to replace him. I think their best bet would to be stretch him if you can, waive him, and try to get him back after waivers for maybe cheaper if he wants to come back. Or find a sign and trade situation for him to where you get back pieces to make you deeper, more depth, or at least have another point guard or a couple point guards. Campaign is good. I don't know if you want him to be your starting point guard for next season. I do like him. I do like the fit for him. He does bring a good pace for them. But I think you do need another point guard, and you do need some depth. You need some bench. You need some shooting around those guys. You need some defense. I know, knowing Frank Vogel, he's going to want some defensive pieces around him. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. But at first, my initial thoughts, shocking. Wow. You don't see a guy like Chris Paul ever being waived. You know what I'm saying? There's always a trade, maybe a buyout. But it's like, damn, this is what the league's coming to. But it's a business. It's a money play. They got to figure it out. I know he's always had some unfortunate injuries in the playoffs every year, which sucks. And I feel for him because I've gone through the last couple of years. It's the worst time to get injured. But yeah, he's getting older, and then part of the business is looking for younger or better pieces, or pieces that can be available when you need them to. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. And well, this is really the new CBA coming in is really playing a role here because, again, you have 4 guys making real big time money. It is tremendously hard with this new CBA that's going to come in after next year in order to make everything kind of work. So you can see this as Matt Ishbia and James Jones kind of setting the table so that they can afford to keep Devin Booker and Kevin Durant and still be competitive in terms of competing for an NBA championship. Let's get to another one. And I'll spend more time talking about it than you can, because I'm gonna be a little bit I don't want to be explosive about it, but I'm gonna say how I really feel. James Harden said during the end of the season that what he wanted to do was compete. That was his focus for his next stop, wherever he ended up playing, whether it's Philadelphia 76ers or what has been rumored to be the team, the Houston Rockets. Over the past, since the beginning of the year, it felt like he's been rumored to go back to the Houston Rockets. I'm sorry, there's no competing happening in Houston. If he goes back to Houston, yes, will they be more entertaining? Maybe. Probably. But they will not be competing for an NBA championship coming out of the Western Conference. So, with that being said, there's a report that came out that James Harden, I believe it's from Shams Charania, that James Harden is reportedly torn between going back to Houston and going back to Philadelphia. Obviously, Philadelphia is a place where he's been the last 1.5 years. They will obviously compete with Joel Embiid there, Nick Nurse there. I used to live in Houston. I love Houston. But the window for James Harden to be a prime player, a major player on a championship team, is dwindling year by year by year. And if he goes to Houston, in my opinion, I'm not taking him seriously anymore as somebody who cares about winning a championship. And I can't believe, I know it could be just a leverage play to get the most money out of Philadelphia. I know how the game goes. But if he does not end up in Philadelphia, I am not taking James Harden or Phoenix. Who knows where he ends up? But if he ends up put it like this, if he ends up in Houston, based on what he said, that he's only factoring in competing at a high level, and he ends up going to Houston, I'm not taking him seriously.
I mean,
I don't know. I know you can't. You can't.
No, I'll speak on it. I will. Yeah. I think that his thoughts were that Houston was going to get a higher pick. So if they got Wembanyama, which I think they had the worst record in the league,
they had a chance. They had a chance. They had a chance. Yes.
Before that happened, I think he was thinking, culturally, if we can change things, and then you have some really good pieces there. Jabari Smith, Segun, he's really good. Jalen Green. They got a lot, they got a lot of good pieces there. And if he goes there, I think he could turn around. Now, they might not win a championship, but in his mind, he's looking at the long run, not just for winning, but, turning a culture around. Also, what it's going to look like for him individually with his years and when he can make the max dollar for his years. I think he thinks he can always go back to a championship situation later on after he gets the years and the money that he wants from a team that can still be a team that he can still bring to the playoffs and still make an impact on. So I think the biggest place, it's a money play probably getting it, and then probably also like trying to get the most years, 3 or 4 years at his age. Which is, so when you get older, you want to get the years. That's the biggest thing. And I don't think Philly would offer him that. Other teams may not. So, but if he ends up in Houston, yeah, it's tough to say he's looking for winning basketball or championship, but I think he could still make that team into a playoff team if they get right picks and some trades. But there's not a lot of free agents. There are some free agents that might go. That Jaylen Brown might end up there. Chris Middleton might end up there. All it takes is for him to buddy up with somebody else to get there, and they're a totally different team. But it said he may not back. It said if he doesn't end up, he could end up with other teams outside of Philly, and I could still take him serious. But it's going to be interesting, nonetheless, to see where he ends up, where he lands, and what his decision is. And said for him, he's a teammate of mine. He's a friend of mine. I play with him. Love playing with him. He's a great player. Top 75 for a reason. He was Luka before Luka in my eyes. And I think he can change any franchise, any organization. I hope he lands in a place where he can still play at a high level and compete and hopefully get a chance to win.
Yeah, I would say Houston can prove me wrong. They do have $60 million in cap space. And to your point, they have Alperen Şengün, Jabari Smith, and Jalen Green. And Ime Udoka is their head coach. So if they decided to kind of give up on some of their assets that they have now, the number 4 pick, maybe a player or two that has a high potential window, like Jalen Green, to your point, they can make a big jump real fast. Again, with $60 million in cap space, it can happen in the snap of a finger. But if it doesn't happen, if that roster does not look like a championship roster, then I personally, as a fan of the sport of basketball, would be disappointed in James Harden. Again, I've lived in Houston, and if a man decides to go back to Houston, I ain't gonna blame him. But I'm talking about in the world of basketball. As a basketball fan, I will have a modicum of disappointment. All right, about to head out of here. Reminder that we'll be back doing this show. We'll record after game number 5, which is on Monday night. We'll record after that. The series could be over, or it could be extended for another game back in Miami, which would then be the following Thursday. Boy, Danny, they spread these finals games out, boy.
Yeah,
jeez. Anyways, let's talk about, so we talked about a couple of 3 guys who are going to be mentioned during free agency. But there's one big slot that hasn't been filled yet that I would assume needs to be filled before the NBA draft, let alone free agency. The Toronto Raptors and their head coaching gig. They currently do not have a head coach, and it made me think of their entire situation in general. Number 1, Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam were both in the top 6 in minutes played this year. Fred VanVleet is a free agent. Pascal Siakam is entering the last year of his deal. And as we've learned, if you end up making the All-NBA team, you then make yourself eligible for the Supermax. And guys, Pascal Siakam making the Supermax does not seem like something a front office should want to do when the team itself is not in the playoffs. That's going to be a big issue for them to solve, along with the head coaching situation. Also, you have to figure out as well, too, remember this past trading deadline, Mikal Bridges, along with OG Anunoby, were getting a lot of attention as potential pieces that could be moved during the trading deadline. And you saw some of the prices or the rumored deals that were out there. You're talking about 3 first-round picks for OG Anunoby. If you're the Toronto Raptors, you're looking at a situation here where you have a guy who won Rookie of the Year in Scotty Barnes, who's a young player who's he's not on the same timeline as Pascal Siakam, particularly with his certain type of skill set. And we could even make a debate if they even fit together on the same roster if you want to maximize both players. So now you have a guy in Scotty Barnes who you spent draft capital on, who has a decent future in front of him if he continues to develop. You have a guy in Pascal Siakam's on the up, who's about to be 30, so they're not in the same age range. And then you have OG Anunoby, who's a great trade candidate as well. There is an opportunity, particularly with this new CBA coming in after the end of next year, where Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster and anybody else who's a decision maker in the Toronto Raptors front office can say, this is the perfect, especially with Giannis and Embiid, 28 and over. This is a perfect time to say, y'all got it. Y'all go ahead, do your thing. We're going to let Scotty build. We're going to hopefully, we could trade Pascal Siakam if we wanted. We could trade OG Anunoby if we want. We can get a couple of good young draft picks in here. And now we could build up organically again and not have to worry about all these other decisions that might not equate to ever winning a championship again or even being in contention. I think it's it hurts because I like the city of Toronto and I want to see them have a competitive team. But I think it's the wisest way to go considering the landscape of the NBA and where their roster kind of shakes out. Again, remember, Fred VanVleet, also a free agent. So you don't want to start. As much as I like Fred's game, I wouldn't want to pay him $35 million a year and pay Pascal $35 million a year if the best it's going to equate to
it's like 40, 50 now.
It's a play-in game. That doesn't make sense to me.
100%. I agree. I think it's time, especially with the fact I think those guys have been used to winning and they want to win now. And I think it's just there. I think it's part of the reason why maybe Nick has lost the locker room, or that was the rumor that he kind of lost the locker room, and guys are kind of over it or over the city. I don't know if they're over the city, but the situation of being playing in games or not making the playoffs. Obviously, some of those guys had to go to Tampa during COVID, come back. Like it's been since the championship, since we won it, they have been a whirlwind of roller coaster of up and down and injuries and losing key guys like Norm and Kyle, Kawhi, of course. So yeah, I think it's time for them to rebuild. Start over, start fresh, get some picks. But you need to find a coach that can turn the culture around, turn the situation around, and maybe there's somebody that can grab the locker room. But as I said, I think at this point, Fred and Pascal and OG rather be in winning situations. And I'm not saying they can't win together, but I don't know if they can win a championship with those pieces. I said I don't think they fit well. Scotty, OG, Pascal, they're kind of similar in what they do or want to be. Like OG, I think wants to have a bigger role in certain situations. Could be wrong, but I think they'd rather be on winning teams. So yeah, and paying those guys a lot of money to not win a championship or to not to be always at the end of 7, 8 seed or 9 between 7 and 10. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm all for those guys. They deserve it. They deserve to get paid, but I want to see them win as well. But it's going to be like a Philly situation before Joel got healthy. They're going to need a Brett Brown type of guy to come in to be positive, get these young guys in this, or even Monty types. But it's hard. Slim pickings with the coaches that are left out there. I don't know who you're going to get to be able to start or rebuild. You can get a young coach, figure it out, work on draft picks. I don't know what pick they have in the draft this year, but I don't know if they're in the top 5.
The number 14, they're the number 14 pick, I believe.
Yeah. So it's going to take some time, but if I'm them, I think it's time to find a right coach that you can build with and use those pieces, get some draft picks, keep 1 or 2 of those guys. You can build, obviously the young guy, Scotty is one of them, and try to get as many good pieces and picks for the other guys and figure out, good places to send them, send them off and, hope for the best for them.
Yeah, I'm not a general manager, but I would ask the Portland Trailblazers who have said they want to compete with Damian Lillard.
Mm-hmm.
I would, again, if I was the Portland Trailblazers, I wouldn't do this. But if I was the Raptors, I would definitely entertain, hey, Pascal Siakam to Portland for the number 3 pick. Whoever will do whatever you got to do to make the money match. Boom. That's one move. So now you're looking at either you're looking at Scotty Barnes and Scoot Henderson or Scotty Barnes and Brandon Miller. Whoever Charlotte doesn't take with the number 2 pick. And then I'm looking at OG Anunoby. As much, I think he could fit in almost any roster in the NBA, but teams willing to give me 3 first-round draft picks for him. Yeah, we're going to have to move you, OG. And I see what I could, and I'll give back the 14th pick and make it all work. But if I can get Scoot with Scotty or Brandon Miller with Scotty and a couple other guys that I could trust, and maybe bring in a developmental coach like a Jordy Fernandez, who's been rumored to be there. He spent 6 years with the Denver Nuggets after spending this past year with the Sacramento Kings. So it looks like he's probably got some innovative ways to play basketball. Kenny Atkinson is rumored to be one of the guys as well who could get the gig. Charles Lee, the assistant from the Milwaukee Bucks, has been rumored to be one of the top candidates for the gig. I give them the keys to the bus, and I say by 3 or 4 years, I need Scotty Barnes to be an all-star. I need our draft pick to be an all-star, and we work from there. That's the best way to do it. Paying Siakam and Fred VanVleet, again, as much as those are the guys, they were with us from day one of the pod. It don't make sense. So that's the way
Phil
I
Handy
see it.
over there. You know what I'm saying? Get Phil Handy over there. You got Rico over there. And, head coaching staff or however you want to do it, but figure out the coaching staff first before you start making moves. But they need to do that ASAP. Draft is coming up soon. You don't know who your coach is. Free agency is coming up soon. You don't know who your coach is. Yeah, that takes a toll. I want to say it's a big important piece or part of these guys that are going to be free agents. Fred VanVleet's for him to not know if he wants to come back there because he doesn't know who the coach is. You might miss out on somebody like that. You got to clear that up. So hopefully they find somebody good, somebody that can keep the locker room, grab the locker room, and be ready for a rebuild or a cultural change or try to bring them back closer together. But they're in a pickle.
Yeah. But then again, it wouldn't surprise me if they did some other move and became a competitive again, because Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, and OG Anunoby are really good players. So I don't know, but it seems to be they should lean one way over the other. We'll see how it happens. And of course, throughout the entirety of free agency, including Danny's, we'll be podcasting. So stay tuned for that. I think that's pretty much all we got. I'd also like to let you guys know that tonight during Game 3 of the NBA Finals, there were a bunch of tickets that I cashed out on. So try and find me outside of this, and we could talk about it in earnest. Danny,
Congrats, brother.
It was straight, bro. Can I just tell you about the cleanup?
It seemed like easy money. It seemed like easy money. I had Jokic over 10 assists, and he got 10. I had Jimmy under 7 assists. I don't think he got the 7 assists. I had Gabe Vincent over 3 threes. I don't think he got the 3 threes. So yeah, I missed out on a couple. I was on Justin.
Let me just
today. Go ahead.
Let's clarify where those things are taking place. That was because Richard Jefferson asked you on NBA Today on air, would you like this or that? It's not like I just got to clear it up because
I didn't bet. Yes, I didn't bet.
I want no smoke. I gave my advice. Because you see what's happening in the NFL, right?
No, I did not see. I just gave my advice to the fans who asked. But what's happening in the NFL? I didn't bet. I'm not a betting man.
Of course you're not. But again, just in case, got to make sure we're on the up and up here. But a bunch of NFL players, I think some from the Colts, are coming under fire. The NFL has found out that they were betting on games, and you're looking at significant suspension for a number of NFL players that the league was tracking. So that's that.
Okay, so repeat that again.
So a number of NFL players are facing significant suspensions for gambling this past NFL season. I don't have all the details. I believe they were for example, there's a rule in the NFL. Let's say you're a linebacker for the Atlanta Falcons. You're allowed to bet on the NBA Finals, but you cannot bet on the NBA Finals while you're in a team facility. If you're betting from a team facility, that is worthy of a suspension. So I think a lot of guys were placed. Any team facility. So I think a lot of guys were placing bets on other sports, thinking they were in the clear, but you can't do that stuff while you're on team property, and that's what a lot of the guys were doing, and so trouble awaits them, unfortunately. So
interesting concept of these rules here. So yeah. But I'm not betting.
Yeah, it's a whole new world, that's for sure. But with that being said, you guys can find me on Twitter, Harrison Sanford, and you could find out where I'm giving your insights, because I assume most of the people that are listening to this podcast are allowed to bet. So until next time, my friends, we'll see you after game number 5. Hopefully, it's not the end of the NBA Finals. I'll be disappointed. Danny, please let me know what they
read, rate, subscribe, review. Catch your boy on ESPN today or ESPN one of these days for the last one. I think I won last spot, and Harrison, we'll catch you in a couple days. So
yes, sir. See y'all.
Peace.